Another book that I totally enjoyed by an author that I totally love is What Lies Between Us by John Mars. And this is, did I talk about this already? Hey everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. This is actually future Audrey that you're seeing because I have edited part 3 of all the books that I read this summer, and the video is 35 minutes long, and that's nonsense. That is nonsense for you, that is nonsense for me, and it is certainly nonsense for YouTube Studio, who would probably take 7 hours to upload that video. So, future me is jumping in to let you know that this is part 3 of 4 of all the books that I read this summer, and we're just gonna talk about a few books. There were some hits, there were some misses, there were some sleeper hits, there were some what just happened here, there were some I never saw this coming, and we're gonna talk about those 7 books in the next 2 videos. And spoiler alert for video number 4 and the final book that I talk about is a book that I have wanted to read for years and have put off because I was afraid that it wasn't gonna live up to expectations. So you're gonna have to turn into part 4 to find out what that's all about. But we're gonna dive into video number 3. My clothes are gonna change because I filmed it all in that same white sweater that you saw in part 2, and you're gonna see again in part 4. But here we go. Number 3, books I read this summer. Another 2020 anticipated release that did not disappoint is He Started It by Samantha Downing. She wrote My Lovely Wife last year, which I absolutely loved. This is the UK cover, so that's why it looks a little bit different. And this is another sort of dark and twisted thriller, and I loved it. And what's weird about this book, and in all fairness, I did read My Lovely Wife like right when it came out, which I feel like was like February of 2019 or something. But this almost felt like it was written by a different author, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it felt like a completely different book. And I feel like there's some authors you read, and not that it's the same story over and over again, even if it's not a series, but like their voice or their style, with all due respect, like Lucy Foley, her 2 books, they're very similar. This feels very different to me than My Lovely Wife. So for one, if you didn't enjoy that book, I would give this a go. And for 2, if you did enjoy that book, I would give this a go. But this is a book, like most thrillers, best go into it blind. So all I will tell you is that this is a cross-country road trip. It's a tongue twister with 3 siblings, 2 sisters, a brother, and then their spouses. And basically their grandfather passes away, and this is part of his will. They have to go on this cross-country road trip that the kids went on when they were younger and relive it exactly as it was when they did it back when they were kids. And there's a reason they don't want to do it, but at the end of this road trip is their inheritance, so there's plenty of reasons to do it. And they do, and it's not your family road trip, but it's great. So, loved it, flew through it. Unexpected in many ways, partially because in my head I had like a road trip, boys on the side with a twist kind of thing in my head, but it's not that. But highly recommend it. I'm obsessed with her. So, she's an auto-buy author for me for sure. The next book is another one that is very much outside of my normal comfort zone, but I had heard so many great things about it. It has been on my like heart list on Hoopla for a long time. And I say outside my zone in that it is like an across Europe historical pirates and highwaymen mystery love story romp in the 18th century adventure. And it is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. And this is actually the first in a series. And I did the audiobook of it, which I think I already said. And I have to say, I actually enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to. And there were moments in the book where I was kind of like, all right, like get it going here, because I feel like it's like a 500-page book or something. It's a super long, it's like a 10-hour audiobook. But I enjoyed it. And this is about I kind of feel like it's like a little Princess Bride-ish. Again, with like the pirates and the highwaymen and stuff like that. But we're not trying to rescue a princess at the end of the day. So we have our Lord Henry Montague, who goes by Monty, who is basically like the bisexual bad boy lord. And his father wants him to go on this tour of Europe. And in the process, they're gonna drop his sister off at like a boarding school of some kind of sort. And then Monty's supposed to basically get like the bad boy out of his system and then come back and like be the lord and resume his place in the family. And Henry's best friend Percy goes along for the ride along with some other folks. And Henry and Monty, his name is Henry Montague, but he goes by Monty. I'm really struggling with names in this video. And Henry and Percy also sort of have this will they, won't they, love affair, friends, but not really together, conflict with each other. So it's this whole crazy escapade where basically Monty gets them into some trouble and they wind up kind of being on the run partway through their trip and on their own. And it was just sort of a lot of fun. And when I say like unexpectedly enjoyed it, it was way more fun than I thought it was going to be. Much like Red, White, and Royal Blue, I was just trash for the romance. And I just loved Monty and Percy, and I highly recommend the audiobook of this because I feel like it really did lend so much to the story and to the voices. And Monty's just great, and Percy's even better, and I just love them. This book was a Stonewall Honor winner. It has LGBTQ rep, like I said. Monty is bisexual. Percy is mixed race, so there is a lot of interesting commentary on how he is viewed by people when they are out on tour. They calls it like his tour across Europe. And we have the interracial romance between them. There is, I would say, like a little bit of drag in the middle because like this tromping across Europe thing goes on for quite a while. But at the end of it, I was satisfied with the ending. I had some fun with it. And again, super outside of my comfort zone. So it was just nice to read something that I wouldn't normally have gravitated towards and be pleasantly surprised by it. The next book I read is also another super outside the comfort zone, so you can kind of catch my summer theme here. And it is The Brightlands by John Fram. And I was listening to Gabby from Gabby Reads talk about this book, and it really intrigued me. And I feel like it was after I read Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, who always kind of dances the fine line between thriller and horror, that my horror antenna got a little bit peaked, and I'm not really a horror reader. So this book is pitched as sort of Friday Night Lights meets Supernatural. And I've never seen Supernatural, and I am not like a big football person. I'm not even a little football person. But I would say this has stretching Beartown vibes in the sense that this takes place in a small town in Texas, and this entire town lives, breathes, and dies for football. So Friday Night Lights. What was the James Van Der Beek? Varsity Blues. But super dark. And it is something weird is going on in this town, suffice to say. So Dylan is the star football player. He is just everything and anything. And when the book opens, he calls his older brother, who has left this small town 10 years ago and lives in New York City, because he had to get out of this small suffocating town that basically was just killing him and didn't accept him. He is a gay man happily living in New York now, and this town basically booted him out because they didn't accept him for who he was. So Dylan calls his brother Joel and is sort of like really dark and down and freaking out. And it's like, I can't do this anymore, and I need your help, and I need your help. So Joel goes down to visit one weekend, and things go super sideways, and Dylan goes missing. So I went into this super blind also, and you need to. I listened to the audiobook of this, which I highly recommend, because it is creepy AF, and there's a huge creepiness factor to it that I think resonates totally differently when you're listening to it in a good way. And I would not miss out on that super creep out factor. But this book really kind of creeped me out big time. And I just finished another book called The Patient that Gabby also recommended, which was another book that you could not listen to at night. Although I actually read that book, but could not read at night. I wouldn't listen to this one at night. It totally freaked me out. But it is such an interesting exploration of the small town, small-mindedness, acceptance, toxic masculinity, commentary on football, commentary on what that means in America, how it's viewed, the, you know, like the high school superstar, how revered they are, how they get away with everything type of a thing, much like in Beartown, how like those boys could do no wrong even when they did wrong. And this is not in any way like Beartown, but other than the fact that it's the most, like the sport is the most revered thing about this small town, and it becomes very divisive, and the people, how they view these players, and it just, you know, it's trying to find Dylan because he goes missing, and uncovering old secrets and old animosities and why Joel left in the first place. And it is just crazy creepy and so good. I never would have come across this book on my own. And even if I did, I don't even know that I would have picked it up. This was such a gem of a find. So it's definitely creepy scary. I would be prepared for that. It's such a like dark and twisty kind of a book, but I loved it. I would say if you can deep dive into a dark, horror-ish book, give it a go. Because, again, this book surprised me. This book came out of nowhere. And I am really happy that I read it. So I'm very intrigued by him as an author. I don't even know if this is his first book, but he had me. The characters were great. The story was great. I wasn't quite sure what was happening at the beginning, and I couldn't quite get my footing, and I kind of love that when that happens, when it pays off in the end. And it just, I can't like say enough good stuff about it. It was great. So thumbs up, give this one a go. So you guys know the drill. We are going to be back in video number 4 shortly because it's already filmed and edited. It just needs to be scheduled to go live. And I will finally round out what I read this summer in that video. I will never again recap 3 months worth of books at one time in one video because this is nonsense. But let me know if you guys read any of the books I talked about today, thoughts, feelings, all the good things, and I will see you guys in another video really soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.